Hello everyone, wishing you all good health and peace in life. There are moments in life when the world seems to stop, when fear, love, and desperation all collide in a single heartbeat. For Hyeon, that moment came under the cold lights of the hospital, where her beloved daughter Maya lay pale and fragile. The sound of machines echoed like a cruel reminder of how fragile happiness could be. Tears streamed down Hyeon's face as she clasped her hands and begged desperately, her voice trembling with a mother's pain. Please, please save my child. In that storm of fear, she felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. And yet, beside her stood D, the kind man who never let go of her hand. He did not speak much, but in his silence there was strength. In his presence there was love. Every glance, every touch, was his quiet promise that no matter how dark the night, he would not leave Hyeon and Maya to face it alone. In that critical moment, when despair could have swallowed them whole, love revealed its truest form, not in grand words, but in the steady, unshakable devotion of a man who chose to stay. The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the sound of hurried footsteps and the uneven breathing of a mother who was carrying her child through the hospital doors. Hyeon's arms shook as she held Maya close, the little girl's body burning with fever, her lips trembling from seizures that had struck without warning. Fear clawed at Hyeon's chest, a fear deeper than words could describe. She whispered her daughter's name over and over, as if calling it might pull Maya back from danger. Beside her, D rushed forward to help, his heart pounding, but his face calm. He did not speak much. Instead, he carried the weight of the moment with quiet strength. Where Hyeon's voice broke in desperate pleas to the doctors, "Please save my child. Please don't let anything happen to her." D's silence was a different kind of prayer, steady and full of love. 3 days passed within the pale walls of the hospital. The hours were marked by injections, 4 drips, and anxious waiting. Hyeon barely slept, her eyes fixed on Maya's small body lying under the white sheets. When Maya cried, she soothed her with trembling hands, and when the doctor came, she begged for reassurance, her voice raw with exhaustion. D, meanwhile, moved quietly in the background, never leaving their side. He bought porridge when neither mother nor child had eaten. He brought clean clothes and medicine. He carried pillows, adjusted blankets, and sat through the long hours of night listening to the sound of Maya's labored breathing. When Hyeon's hands were cold from worry, he held them. When her tears fell, he wiped them away without a word. Hyeon knew she was not alone. Though her fear was unrelenting, she could feel D's love like a steady flame beside her, unwavering in the storm. And little by little, that warmth gave her strength. On the 3rd day, Maya's fever finally began to fall. Her cheeks regained color, her eyes opened wider, and her small voice whispered, "Mom, I want to go home to Baby." It was the sweetest sound Hyeon had ever heard. She held Maya close, tears of relief streaming down her face, while D stood near them, his eyes soft with quiet joy. He had asked for nothing, demanded nothing, yet his actions spoke louder than words. He would remain with them, in sickness and in health, in despair and in hope. That night, as rain tapped gently against the hospital window, Hyeon looked at D and whispered through her tired smile, "Thank you for not leaving me, for not leaving us." D only shook his head softly, his voice low but steady, "I never will." The next morning, pale light slipped through the thin hospital curtains. Maya was still asleep, her small hand resting on Hyeon's palm. For the first time in days, Hyan felt her daughter's skin cool and soft, no longer burning with fever. She bent down and kissed her child's forehead, whispering a silent prayer of gratitude. Dee arrived with a bowl of steaming porridge, his shirt damp from the rain outside. He smiled gently when he saw the two of them. "Hyan," he said softly, placing the food on the table. "She's better now. The doctor said she can go home tomorrow." Hyan's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of relief. She nodded, her voice trembling. "I was so afraid we would lose her. I begged God. I begged the doctors. I didn't know what else to do." Dee sat beside her and, without a word, placed his hand over hers. His touch was warm and firm, as if to say, "You were never alone." When Maya woke, her eyes searched for her mother first, then for Dee. "Uncle," she whispered weakly, "did you bring me something good to eat?" Dee chuckled, a sound that broke the heaviness in the room. "Of course. Porridge for my brave little girl. But you have to eat it all, so you can go home and see Baby." At the mention of her beloved dog, Maya smiled, though her arm was still sore from the injections, and her body tired. Hope shone in her face again. That evening, as Hyan fed her daughter, Dee stood by the window, watching the rain. His thoughts were quiet but full. He had no wealth to offer, no grand promises, but his heart belonged entirely to this small family. In their most desperate days, he had chosen not to step back but to stay closer, to love quietly, steadily, without asking for anything in return. When the doctor came in to check Maya one last time before discharge, Hyan's hands clutched Dee's sleeve unconsciously. "She'll really be all right, won't she?" "Yes," the doctor answered with a reassuring smile. "Her fever is gone. Just let her rest a few more days at home." Hyan's shoulders shook as relief washed over her. She leaned her head briefly against Dee's arm, not caring about appearances anymore. For a moment, she allowed herself to rest in the comfort of someone who had carried her through the storm. Dee looked down at her, his eyes soft, his voice steady. "I told you, Hyan, you and Maya are not alone. As long as I breathe, I'll be here." The next morning arrived with sunlight streaming through the hospital window. Maya stirred awake, blinking at the brightness. Her small voice rose with excitement. "Mom, can we go home today? I want to see Baby." Hyan brushed her daughter's hair gently. "Yes, my love. The doctor said we can go home after breakfast. Just be patient a little longer." Dee appeared carrying a small bag of clothes he had brought from the house. "I've packed your things. Hyan, Maya, I even brought your school sandals." He crouched down to show the little pair of shoes, and Maya's face lit up. "Uncle Dee, thank you," she squealed, hugging the sandals as if they were a treasure. After the final checkup, the nurse removed the IV line. Maya winced, but she didn't cry. Hyan kissed her forehead. "You are my brave girl." With the discharge papers signed, they stepped out into the fresh air together. The hospital, with all its long nights and heavy fear, was finally behind them. Outside, the sky was clear, washed clean by the night's rain. As they reached the small gate, a familiar sound greeted them. Baby barking joyfully. The dog had been waiting faithfully, tail wagging furiously, eyes shining with love. "Maya," Hyan laughed as the little girl bent down to hug her furry friend. "See, Baby missed you so much." Dee watched quietly, the corner of his lips lifting in a rare, gentle smile. Moments like this, simple, ordinary, but filled with love, meant everything to him. That night, back at home, the three of them sat together over a simple meal of rice and vegetables. Maya, still weak but smiling brightly, announced, "Tomorrow I'll go back to school. I don't want to fall behind my friends." Hyan stroked her daughter's cheek, her eyes misty. "Yes, you will. But first, a few more days to rest." Across the table, Dee met Hyan's gaze. She didn't speak, but her eyes told him what her lips could not: gratitude, trust, and something deeper, something that had grown quietly through hardship. The storm had not broken them. Instead, it had bound them closer. And in that quiet, ordinary evening, Dee knew with certainty his place was here, beside Hyan and Maya. Through every trial, through every dawn. Life often tests us in the most painful ways, through sickness, fear, and sleepless nights. In those moments, everything we thought was strong can feel fragile. A mother's heart breaks when she sees her child suffer, and fear can make even the bravest spirit tremble. Yet, it is also in those moments that love reveals its true strength. Hyan's desperate prayers and tears for her little daughter. Maya showed the power of a mother's bond, unshakable, willing to do anything to protect her child. But beside her was something just as precious: the quiet, steady love of Dee. Dee did not promise miracles. He did not speak many words. Instead, he stayed. He cooked porridge, carried clothes, wiped away tears, and held on when Hyan was about to fall apart. His love was not loud, but it was unwavering. The lesson is simple but profound. True love is not measured by grand gestures, but by the willingness to stay in the hardest moments. Anyone can stand beside us when life is easy, but only the kindest hearts remain when life grows heavy with fear and pain. Maya's recovery was not only a victory of medicine, it was a reminder that love, care, and faith can heal wounds deeper than the body. For a child, knowing that her mother and Uncle Dee never left her side gave her courage. For Hyan, knowing she was not alone gave her strength to endure. In the end, the story teaches us this: happiness is not found in wealth or comfort, but in having someone who refuses to let go of your hand when the world feels unbearable.